Rabbi is Friedman. Thank God it's Tuesday, the very first Tuesday of year 2021. And everybody was so anticipating this moment, this year, this number. We wanted that switch from 2020 to 2021, and now it's here. And now what? Everybody always anticipates, and the mood is high, and everything is so positive and hopeful. And then the holiday passes, and nothing is happening. And we get into that little unfortunate mode of post-holiday blues. So, of course, today's program I would like to dedicate is how to get over the post-holiday blues and get enthusiastic and inspired about life every day.
You know, we celebrate Tu Bishvat. Tu Bishvat is the new year for trees. It's in the middle of the winter, but we're celebrating a new year for trees. Because somewhere under the earth, under the frozen earth, the revival of the trees, of the grass and so on, has already started. We don't see it, we don't feel it, we don't really appreciate it, but we know it's there. So we already celebrate. Now that's called positive thinking. It's in the middle of the winter, but we know the spring is going to come. So we start to celebrate even while it is still visibly winter. That's because we look past the surface. If you look past the surface, you see the goodness. So whether it's 2020 or 2021, whether you put your hopes in this person or this event or that event, that's just on the surface. Beneath the surface, good things are happening. And it's not that deep. It's not that far beneath the surface. It's just beneath the surface. And the surface, we all know, is fake news. That's the layer, the coating, the surface that is covering up what's really happening. The fake news. The panic. There's no need for panic. The world isn't going anywhere. Our country isn't going anywhere. We're not going anywhere. It's not over. It's not the end. It's not disaster. It's just a need for a little more goodness. A little more honesty. A little more transparency. And that's increasing and improving every day.
Rabbi Friedman, we don't just want to be here. The new year is a new beginning. And I think what people really, really want is that new beginning. And we want it to be here already.
Right. We want to see the results of our deeds. We know we're planting good seeds. We want to see the blossoming of those good seeds, or seeds of good. And we will. We will see it. When you plant, it grows. We've always trusted that. That's the whole world of agriculture is based on that trust. If you plow and you put in the seeds, you will get results.
Rabbi Friedman, in one of our shows, this seems like a call to be patient, but then we had a whole show about patience is not a great thing. We should not be patient.
We shouldn't need to be.
Absolutely, that would be great. But still, there's this contradiction. So you plant it, now wait for it to grow, and be patient, but yet don't be patient. So what else can we be doing so we move things along a little quicker?
Yeah, instead of being patient, we should be consistent. Keep planting, keep nourishing or nurturing until the results become visible. There is a little bit of a significance to the fact that we just started the second book of Torah. The first book of Torah is basically a list of names. When you boil it right down, that's what it is. We're introduced to Adam, to Noach, Avraham, Yitzchak, Yaakov, his children, who are the children of Israel. End of book. So what do we know from the first book of the Torah? We know who we are. We know who. We know who God is going to work with to make the world perfect, because that's the purpose. Now that we know who, the next thing we need to know is where. Location, location, location. Where is this perfection, this godliness going to take place? The answer is not in heaven, on earth. And not in the most heavenly part of earth, like your faith, your mind, your heart. No. In the physical deeds with the physical substances, the money that you use for tzedakah, the wax you use for your Shabbos candle, the water you use for your mikvah, that's where godliness happens. So how does the second book begin? It begins with Moshe. Until now, we had patriarchs, matriarchs. Now, all of a sudden, we have a teacher. So it's almost like the first thing a child learns is who is mommy and who is tati. That's your patriarchs, your matriarchs. That's the first book of Torah. Who are your parents? Who are your ancestors? Whose child are you? That's the first thing a baby learns. But now we're not babies anymore. In the second book of Torah, we're starting school. We're going to Cheder. So now we have a teacher. Moshe is our teacher. So we've made great progress. We've gone from being babies to being students. And what do we learn when we go to a good school? We learn what our contribution is. As babies, we are only takers. As a student, you learn how to be a giver, how to make a difference, how to recognize what is essential from non-essential. Like that story about the previous Rabbi who asked his father why we have two eyes. I think we've mentioned the story before. Yes. We have two eyes so that we can see three-dimensional. So you can tell the difference between the importance and significance of a friend and the shallowness and pettiness of candy. What we need now, more than ever before, is the ability to see three-dimensional. We got to see past the surface. We got to see the deep, not the superficial. Because the superficial is very discouraging and distasteful.
For sure. I'm going to make an obvious observation. So we're starting a new year. We're waiting for the Mashiach. And the book that we're starting the new year with is about the Mashiach of that time. I want to see something mystical with this. Kind of sounds hopeful a little bit.
I'll tell you something mystical. Moshe was the Moshiach of that time. Mystically, We today, the Jewish people of today, are reincarnation of the people who left Egypt. It's like the last generation is also the first generation of Jews. The first generation of Jews are those Jews who left Egypt and came to Mount Sinai and said, yes, we will be your people. But later on, when it was time to go into Israel, our souls refused. Because, the spies came back and they said it's not doable, and so we refused to go. Moshe, of course, was devastated. He took us out of Egypt to bring us to the promised land, and we don't want to go to the promised land. But in his devotion and his love for us, he also didn't enter the promised land because he wouldn't go without us. So now that we are reincarnated, we are back, there's something in our soul that doesn't deserve to go to Israel because we refused. So Moshe will make sure that since he is now going to go to the promised land with Mashiach, he's going to take us with him. So he's not only the Mashiach of then, he is the Mashiach of now too. Now, how's that for mystical?
That leaves me a bit speechless.
So the reason we will merit to go into the promised land, which means to see the world be perfect, because the promised land will become the entire globe, is because we have Moshe on our side. He never abandoned us. He never gave up on us. He took us out of Egypt to bring us to the promised land, and he will bring us to the promised land. You can trust him. He's a good man.
So he is a man.
He's the man.
He is the man. Okay.
He is the man.
Rabbi Friedman, in one of your lectures, not on our show, but on your YouTube channel, you said that Mashiach is going to announce the fact that he's the Mashiach already on top of a built temple. Can you elaborate on that a little bit more? Doesn't that kind of contradict the fact that first the temple is going to be built, and then the Mashiach is going to tell the world that he's the Mashiach?
Even after he tells us that he's Moshiach, we're still going to feel like we're in exile. It's like Mashiach comes, he builds the Beis HaMikdash, we're not in Golus anymore, but we can't believe it. We can't believe it. Why? Because we're so humble. So yes, Mashiach is Moshiach, and that's a beautiful Beis HaMikdash. It's a beautiful temple, but me, I don't deserve. So no, hasn't happened to me yet. So Mashiach has to say, will you stop being so humble? Enough of that. You have been taken out of Golus. Look around and you'll see. You don't have the same problems you used to have. You see the world very differently. You can see clearly now the rain is gone. So, in some way, the humility, which is so beautiful, that came as a result of being 2,000 years homeless, has served its purpose and it's no longer valuable. Enough with the humility. Now be a light to the nations.
Rabbi Friedman, isn't that sort of what is happening to the whole world right now? I mean, people are not, we've been believing so many things that we were told to believe for so long. And now the truth is coming out. You can see it all over. I'm sorry, I'm going to bring politics into this, but people are vocal about their values. They're vocal about their beliefs and their goodness and standing for the good and for the truth. And a lot of America is a religious country overall. And a lot of Christian people are standing up right now. You can see it on the internet. You can see when people are gathering in rallies what they stand for. They stand for that goodness. So that is kind of, is that sort of like Mashiach within each and every one of us, Jewish and not Jewish? Is it sort of that process of people coming out of wherever they've been for the longest time, not by their choice.
Whatever closet they've been in.
And it's hard to believe that this is happening, because I believe a lot of people wanted to see this happen, and people are getting united. And again, before you said that there's no need for that unity. But it seems that there kind of is, that the more people come out together and their values are aligned for the goodness, isn't that how people are going to overcome this darkness that we're living in right now? And I mean all people, not just the Jewish people, because everybody's coming out.
Unity is always good. Not strength in numbers has always been true. The thing is that the goodness that some people are developing or expressing is enough to fix the world. You don't have to have everybody. It's a tipping point, like elections. It's ironic.
As long as they're true elections.
Because a vote this way or a vote that way can change everything, right? So one more person doing good can tip the scales for those people who are not doing good. So we don't need everyone's cooperation. We just need enough goodness to tilt the scale. And we're just one vote, this way or that way. So one more mitzvah, that's it, tilts the scale. One more goodness, one more honesty, one more selflessness, and that's it. And then whatever has remained unholy will surrender to the power of goodness. Because goodness is true and fake news is fake.
So it's important not to lose perspective.
Not to be intimidated by those who are still not getting it. And in terms of what is Mashiach, this goodness that we're seeing, that's been true all along. The world has always been fueled by goodness. The fact that we're noticing it, that's Mashiach.
That's beautiful.
The fact that it's becoming obvious. The veil is lifting. The fog is lifting. We're starting to see clearly. That's Mashiach.
That's amazing. Rabbi Friedman, but I'm still going to come down to earth a little bit and speak about what people have. Again, this is new number, new something, and we're in that mode of we're going towards something, especially fast right now. But in this period of time, people make promises to themselves, promises to become better, whether it's spiritual or physical or health-wise or physically, doesn't matter. Everybody makes those promises. And it's very easy to start doing something when you turn a page because it's the new day, the new you, the new year. And then a little time goes by and unfortunately people regress. And again, I mean in every area. How do you have any suggestions how people can stay on track spiritually, physically, mentally, and in every sense possible?
Let's narrow it down to ourselves, to the Jewish people. The world desperately needs Jews to be Jewish. The world needs Jews to do what Jews do. So let's focus on ourselves for a moment. For many, many years, the Rebbe's blessing, the Rebbe's mantra, his slogan has been good news. We should have good news, good tidings. Good news in the Torah means Eliyahu, the prophet, the angel Eliyahu, will come before the arrival of Moshiach and give us the good news that Moshiach is coming. So good news has always been like an indirect reference to the coming of Mashiach. So when the Rebbe would say you should have good news, there should be good tidings, and that became the call of the hour, it meant get ready for Mashiach, the good news that Mashiach is here. And that kind of trickles down into the physical world. What is everybody excited about today? You wake up in the morning, what's the first thing? What's the news? You grab your phone, you grab your computer. What's new? What's the news? You're not thinking of Mashiach, but that's what it is. So all we need now is good news. And we're so desperate for it. What would make good news? That Jews are taking their Judaism seriously. It's been many, many years that we have been not only oppressed, but depressed. We've lost confidence in ourselves. We've been way too humbled. We don't believe in the power that we have, the influence that we have, and so we're kind of retired, apologetic, low profile. Nobody wants to hear from us. What can we do to change the world? We're a tiny minority. Hopefully they won't hate us and that'll be good enough. No, it's not. It's not good enough. So we've healed impressively just by the fact that we're still here. Mm-hmm. You know, despite the whole world, we are still here. That's pretty impressive. The miracles that happened in our lifetime, it's a healing process. It's cathartic. The miracle of Entebbe, the miracle of the 6-Day War, the miracle of rockets falling on Israel every day for years. And so far, no one has been killed. I mean, what is that? That's the greatest miracle of all, bigger than the miracles in the Bible. That has made us feel a little better about ourselves, but not about our Judaism. We feel better that we have a great army, we are leaders in technology. What about our Jewishness? This is what we need today, practically speaking, realize how wise the Torah is. Realize what a blessing Judaism would be to the world. Realize how our sages were so good, so moral, so godly, and so right about everything. So not only be proud of the talents that we have, like Barbra Streisand and Woody Allen and Leonard Cohen and Bob Dylan. Those are Jews with talents, but we need to be proud of our Jewishness, not only for ourselves, but for the rest of the world. There is nothing more powerful than a Jewish man putting tefillin on his arm and on his head. Nothing. It's pure godliness. And the world should see that. And the world should ask this Jewish man, what are you doing? And why are you doing it? And the answer is, we are God's people. We do what works for him. If we could get half the world to think of what works for him instead of what works for me, would this not be a very, very good world? The only plague that we're suffering from today is the me monster. It's all about me. If we can get rid of that, we got a very good world. Because yes, we have the technology, we have the communication highways. We can be a very good world. Just stop with the me monster. Start serving God. Give charity every day. Not when you're in the mood. When God is in the mood. And he's always in the mood. Make it a habit to give charity. It's not about you. It's about the truth, the power, and the beauty of charity. So put aside a little box, a little container every day. Make sure you put some coins in there. And then when it's full, give it to a charity. Give it to someone who needs it. So any mitzvah that we can do, light Shabbos candles before Shabbos every Friday, the power of that is strong enough to tilt the world, to tilt the scales in favor of goodness, in the favor of godliness. So there are mitzvahs out there you can do. Learn a little Torah. Learn it. We had this program years and years ago. Part of the program was a midnight fabring. Like a kumsitz where we sat around, and it was with students, college students. We sat all night, literally till the sun came up. And there was one student there who was a physicist, and he had many questions. Many questions. Good questions. And we talked about it and we debated it all night long. Well, when the sun came up, out of the 50 students that we started with, there were only 6 left, still awake. One of those 6 students was an Israeli from a kibbutz. He had been quiet all night. Now, he turns to the physicist, who still had more questions. And he says to him, all night long I'm listening to you with your questions. They're good questions, but enough already. I'm from a kibbutz. I didn't even know about Yom Kippur until I came to America. So you would not call me religious. But I know one thing. My people, my ancestors, wandered in the Sinai desert for 40 years. Like somebody said, for 40 years and 40 nights. And at the end of those 40 years, they came out of the desert with 5 books. There are Bedouins who've been in that desert for 3,000 years. They haven't written a single book. Nothing. Garnished. So if your people come out of a desert with 5 books, will you stop with your questions and read the book? It is such a healthy attitude. What is this Bible? I'm not religious. Religious? This is your people's book. What's religion got to do with it? This is the story of who you are, where you come from, what your history is. What do you mean you haven't read it? If you haven't read it, you know nothing.
Rabbi Friedman, to stop being humble as Jewish people, to come out and to do all the things that we need to do, that you tell us about, we have to be, I think, possibly even stronger than the generations before us. However, it seems that as time goes on, the human race weakens. Is this the wrong observation on my part?
No, you're absolutely right. We do have to be stronger than past generations, even than the heroes of the past generations. Because back then, survival made you a hero. If you could overcome, if you could survive, if you could persist, you're a hero. Today, that's not enough. You want to be a hero today, you got to change the world. The whole world. Not all by yourself, of course. But the thinking is much bigger. Much bigger. It's not about Jewish survival anymore. It's about how Jews who have survived can change the world. And the fact is that we do think global. That we've accomplished. We think global. In business, socially, we're very cosmopolitan. We're interested in the whole world. We know about the whole world. Just one more step. Change that whole world that you're so familiar with now. So we have the thinking in place. Now we need the confidence. So it's practically done.
So many questions from that point on. How do we do it? Do we need to come together to do it? Do we need to put the Jewish COP together, Jewish heads together, to package it to the whole world? What is the game plan?
Yes. The individual Jew who might feel insignificant and tiny and maybe even inadequate. But if you think, it's not just me. I'm a member of an incredible people. A people that have seen it all, survived it all, and surpassed everyone else. That's awesome. So as an individual, I may be inadequate. But as a member of these incredible people, of this incredible nation, on the shoulders of giants, my contribution can be decisive. So you don't have to become personally arrogant, but to take pride in your people is essential. You're not just another human being. You're a link in an incredible chain. And every link in the chain is essential, because you break one link, there goes the chain. So don't take pride in yourself. Take pride in the people you belong to, the history behind you. I just heard Rabbi Steinsaltz in a clip. He said something magnificent, simple and yet magnificent. He said when he was a student at the university, he was listening to these great professors, and he felt very small. He felt like a child because he hadn't learned those subjects. But then one day it occurred to him that what the professor has to say is only 30 years old. And he realized that what he has to say, even as a young man, is 3,000 years old. All of a sudden, everything shifted. Now he looked at the professor as a child. You're such a child. You think the world began with Einstein? You think the world began with algebra? You're such a baby. The wisdom of Torah, 3,000 years old. It's not that he is the smartest person in the world. It's what he inherited. So now he sees himself as the professor of 3,000 years of wisdom compared to a professor who just got his PhD yesterday. That is such a true observation. So he says, all my teachings, all my writings, I'm not trying to tell you what I think. I'm trying to tell you what your great-grandfather Abraham thought, and your great-grandmother Rachel, and the great sage at Rabbi Akiva. I want you to know them, not me. So compared to that, everything else is childish. Born yesterday. We were not born yesterday. Everything in Judaism is timeless. It's not just 3,000 years old. It's timeless. So whether it's 3,000, 10,000, millions, it's not going to make a difference. This is timeless wisdom. It will always be true. So if we can take a little more pride in what we represent and who we represent, that can fix the world. And it's not arrogance. It's confidence. If you know the truth, why not tell everybody?
Rabbi Friedman, thank you so much. Thank you for making sense of the entertainment we live in. And hopefully a lot of people are benefiting from what we're doing. That's the whole idea of it. So thank you so much for your time and wisdom every week when you come on to Radio USA.
Always a pleasure.
Thank you.
And lots of good news. More good news.
Amen. Amen.